My hands had been shaking again. Not badly enough for anybody else to notice, but enough that my pen kept dragging across the paper when I tried to make notes. My stomach felt sour. There was pressure behind my eyes, like I had not slept in 3 days. "Ray," Dean said, tapping the contract. "You with me?" "I'm with you." That was my answer every time somebody asked. I was fine. I was tired. I was getting older. Too much coffee. Too much work. Too many people bringing me problems they expected me to solve. That was what I told myself. Outside the office window, forklifts were moving pallets toward the loading bays. The yard was loud as usual. Engines, backup alarms, chains clinking against steel. Then, a white food truck rolled through the gate and parked near the break area. The dock crews liked that truck. Cheap breakfast sandwiches in the morning, hot plates around lunch. Usually, I never paid attention to it. That day, I did. A woman stepped into the service window, reaching for a stack of paper trays. Her hair was tied back badly, like she had done it in a hurry. Her apron had grease marks on the front. She moved slowly, one hand pressed against the lower part of her stomach. I stood up so fast, my chair rolled into the filing cabinet. Dean turned around. "What is it?" I did not answer him. The woman looked up. Mary froze. For a second, neither one of us moved. I could see her face through the glass. She looked thinner than I remembered. Not smaller exactly, just worn down. Her cheeks had lost color. Her eyes looked too big, like she had not slept right in weeks. And she was 8 months along. My son had told me Mary left him. He said she took money from their account, packed a bag, and disappeared with some guy she had been talking to online. Jason had sat at my kitchen table with his face in his hands, saying he felt like a fool. He said Mary had been acting distant for months. He said she did not care about him, did not care about the marriage, did not even care about the baby. I believed him. I had put my hand on his shoulder and told him he would get through it. I had called Mary selfish in my own head. Now, she was standing in a food truck at my loading yard, looking like life had dragged her across broken pavement. I walked out before Dean could stop me. The heat hit me first. Savannah heat has a way of sitting on your shoulders, even early in the day. I crossed the yard, past 2 men unloading cable reels, past a stack of shipping crates with our company name printed on the side. Mary saw me coming. She stepped back from the window. I reached the truck just as the owner, a heavyset woman named Amber, leaned toward the counter. "You ordering?" Amber asked. "No," I said. Mary was staring at the floor. "Mary!" Her eyes came up slowly. "Mr. Williams," she said. Nobody had called me that since Jason brought her home for the first time. Back then, she called me Raymond. Sometimes Ray when she was feeling comfortable. Hearing Mr. Williams from her made something hard settle in my chest. "What are you doing here?" I asked. The question sounded rougher than I meant it to. She looked toward the yard gate, then back at me. "Please don't tell Jason." That was all she said at first. Not "I can explain." Not "you have this wrong." Not even "hello." Just "please don't tell Jason." I felt the dizziness come again. Sharp enough that I gripped the side of the truck. Amber looked between us. "Everything okay?" Mary shook her head once, almost invisible. I looked at her apron, then at the little plastic tip jar beside the register. There were maybe $9 in it. "You off in 10 minutes?" I asked. She did not answer. Amber did. "She can take a break now." Mary looked at her like she wanted to argue, but Amber gave her a look that ended it. "There's a diner 2 miles from here," I said. "We're going." "I can't," Mary said quickly. "I have to work." "You're coming with me." Her face tightened. "I don't want him to know. I said we're going to talk. I didn't say I was calling Jason." That got her attention. She climbed down from the truck carefully. Her shoes were worn out, the kind where the sole bends too easily when you walk. She carried a small canvas bag with one broken strap. That was it. I did not ask where her car was. I already had a bad feeling about the answer. The diner was one of those old places near the highway, with cracked red booths and a waitress who knew every truck driver by name. I picked the booth farthest from the windows. Mary sat across from me and wrapped both hands around a glass of water. She did not drink it. I ordered eggs, toast, grits, whatever came fastest. She tried to tell the waitress she was not hungry. I ordered anyway. For a minute, neither of us talked. Then I said, "Jason told me you left him." Mary stared at the table. "He said you took money." Her fingers curled around the glass. "He said you ran off with somebody." At that, she looked at me. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. She looked too tired to cry. "He moved Tiffany into our house," she said. I sat back. "What?" While I was still there, I thought I had heard her wrong. "Tiffany?" She nodded. Tiffany had worked in our office 2 years earlier. Smart with numbers, always dressed like she was going somewhere better after work. I had let her go after our controller found problems in payroll records. Nothing big enough at the time to turn into a court case, but enough that I did not want her near company books again. "That's not possible," I said. Mary gave a small laugh with no humor in it. "It was very possible, Raymond." She told me Jason started staying out late. Then Tiffany began showing up around the house to help with paperwork. After that, Jason stopped pretending. He told Mary she was making him miserable, told her she was unstable, told her nobody would believe her because he had already explained to the family how difficult she had been. He said if I made trouble, Mary said, he would make sure people thought I couldn't take care of my own baby. My throat went dry. "He put my things in bags," she continued. "He changed the locks 2 days later." "And you didn't call me?" "I did." She looked down again. "Twice." Jason answered the second time. He said you were sick and didn't need more stress. I remembered that call now. Jason had told me Mary was trying to stir up trouble. I had been too weak that night to question him. I had let him take my phone and deal with it. I felt ashamed in a way I had not felt since I was a young man making mistakes I should have known better than to make. "Where have you been staying?" I asked. Mary did not answer right away. "In my car some nights," she said finally. "Motels when I have enough cash. Amber's cousin has a back room sometimes." The food came. Mary stared at it for a moment, then started eating slowly. I watched her take small bites, like she had trained herself not to expect a full meal. There were 100 things I wanted to say. I was sorry. I should have known. I should have come looking. But men like me waste too much time thinking words can repair what actions failed to do. So I said, "You're not going back there." She looked at me carefully. "I don't know where else to go." "You do now." For the first time since I saw her through that window, something in her face changed. Not relief exactly. More like fear had finally made room for a little hope. Then she put her fork down. "Raymond," she said, lowering her voice, "there's something else you need to know." I looked at her. Before Jason threw me out, I saw things on his laptop. Company payments, fake names, bills that didn't make sense. My hands stopped shaking. Mary leaned closer across the table. "Money is disappearing from Williams Harbor." Mary did not say it like she was trying to scare me. That was what scared me. She reached into that worn canvas bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It had been opened and folded so many times the creases were nearly torn through. "I wrote down what I remembered," she said, before Jason found out I'd seen it. I unfolded it. There were company names on the page I had never heard of. Bayline Equipment Group, Coastal Industrial Leasing, Mercer Dock Services. Beside each name were amounts, dates, and short notes in Mary's careful handwriting. "Those are vendors?" I asked. "Not real ones," she said. At least I don't think they are. I looked down again. One payment was for forklift maintenance. Another was for refrigeration repairs at a warehouse we did not own. A third was for leased equipment that, according to the note, had never shown up at any of our yards. Where did you get this? Jason left his laptop open one night. He was in the shower. I saw a spreadsheet. Then I saw Tiffany's name in an email. I started taking pictures with my phone. Do you still have them? Her mouth tightened. He took my phone when he made me leave. Of course he did. I went through the list again, slower this time. I knew every regular supplier we used. I had built Williams Coastal Supply from a warehouse with a roof that leaked every time it rained. You learn every truck, every invoice, every man who tries to charge you twice when you build something from nothing. Those names meant nothing to me. That could be a lot of money, I said. Mary nodded. I think it is. How much? I don't know. But Jason said once that nobody notices missing money when a company is growing. I looked up at her. She had not raised her voice. She had not tried to make Jason sound like some monster from a movie. She just sat there across from me, tired and scared, telling me things I should have been smart enough to see on my own. I had given Jason more access over the last year because I thought that was what a father was supposed to do. I had let him approve smaller vendor payments. I had let him sit in on meetings. When I got sick, I let him cover for me more often than I realized. I called it preparing him. Maybe I had been handing him the keys while he was emptying the building. Mary, I said, why didn't you go to the police? Her eyes dropped to her plate. Because Jason said he'd tell them I made it up. Tiffany said I had no proof. And I was pregnant, alone, with no savings. They kept telling me I was emotional, that I was imagining things. The waitress came by with the coffee pot. I waved her away. My stomach had started turning again. Mary noticed. You're sick today? She asked. I've been sick for months. What kind of sick? Dizzy, nauseous, hands shake sometimes. I lose my train of thought in the middle of a meeting. I tried to shrug it off, but even that took effort. Doctors say stress. I've got a business. I'm almost 60, and I don't sleep enough. It makes sense. Mary went very still. The diner noise seemed to move farther away. Plates clinking, people talking, the old ceiling fan clicking above us. I watched her face change. What? I said. She looked toward the front door, then leaned in close. I heard Jason and Tiffany talking, she said. My jaw tightened. When? A few days before he made me leave. They were in the kitchen. I was upstairs, but I could hear them through the vent. What did they say? Mary swallowed. Tiffany said something about the dose working faster than she expected. For a second, I did not understand the sentence. Then I did. My fingers closed around the edge of the table. Dose of what? I don't know. Her voice shook now. Jason said you were getting weaker. Tiffany told him not to rush anything, because it would make people ask questions. I stared at her. Every evening for the last few months, Jason had brought me tea. He had started it after one of my bad spells at the house, said caffeine was making me worse. He made it sound like he was taking care of me. Some nights he stood in the kitchen while I drank it, asking if I felt any better. And on mornings when I could barely think straight, he would say, "Don't worry, Dad. I'll handle the meeting." I remembered every time I had been grateful. That was the part that hit hardest. Not just that my son may have been doing something to me. It was that he had been patient about it. I pushed the paper toward Mary and lowered my voice. Don't repeat that to anybody. She nodded quickly. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it. No, you did right. I paid the bill, then drove her to a small hotel off Victory Drive. It was not fancy, but it was clean, and it had a front desk that stayed staffed all night. I rented a room under a name nobody connected to me would recognize. Mary stood in the doorway while I carried in 2 grocery bags. Fruit, sandwiches, soup, bottled water, crackers, whatever looked easy for her to eat. I also gave her cash and told her not to argue. She tried anyway. Raymond, I can pay you back. No, you can't. Her face fell. I held up a hand. Not because I don't think you would, because you're not supposed to. You should have had help long before today. She looked away fast, but I saw her wipe at her face. I had already called a doctor I trusted. His office agreed to see her the next morning. I wrote down the appointment time, the hotel address, and one more phone number. Wade, I said. Old Marine friend of mine. He does private work now. You call him if you can't reach me, day or night. Why would I need to? Because I'm going to find out what Jason and Tiffany have been doing. She looked scared again. Please be careful. I looked at that young woman standing in a borrowed hotel room, carrying my grandchild, and I understood something I had spent too many years ignoring. Careful was no longer enough. I drove straight to Wade's office. He was older than me, wider through the middle, with gray hair cut close and a desk covered in folders. He listened without interrupting while I laid Mary's notes in front of him. When I finished, he looked at me for a long moment. You think your son is involved in this? I think I don't know my son. Wade picked up the page with the strange vendor names. I'll start on the money, he said. But you need to get checked today. I already have doctors. I'm not talking about your usual doctor. 2 hours later, I was in a private clinic on the other side of town, giving blood under a name that would not show up in my company insurance records. The next day, Wade called me just after lunch. His voice was flat. Ray, he said, the lab found a dangerous level of a metal in your system. I sat down at my kitchen table. For months, I had been telling myself I was stressed. Now, I knew somebody had been helping me get worse. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time after Wade called. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator kicking on and off. Jason had moved out weeks earlier, claiming he could not stand being in that empty place after Mary left. At the time, I felt sorry for him. I told him he could stay at the condo downtown until he got himself together. Now, I looked around my own kitchen and wondered how many times he had stood right there, smiling at me, waiting for me to drink something he handed over. Wade came by that evening. He did not bring drama with him. That was one reason I trusted him. We had known each other since we were young men. He had seen enough bad situations to know that yelling does not fix a thing. He placed a folder on my counter. The lab report is clear, he said. You need a doctor who knows what to do with it, and you need to stop eating or drinking anything Jason brings you. I nodded. Can you do that without tipping him off? I built a company by letting people think I was softer than I was, I said. I can manage my own son. Wade did not smile. Don't get proud, Ray. This is family. That makes people careless. He was right. I had been careless for months. The next morning, Jason came by the office before 9. He walked in wearing a clean polo shirt, expensive watch, coffee in one hand, and a paper bag in the other. He looked rested. That bothered me more than it should have. Morning, Dad, he said. You look rough. I feel rough. He set the coffee on my desk. I brought you tea too, the kind you like. I looked at the cup. Same brown cardboard sleeve. Same little white lid. The kind he had brought me almost every evening since I started having those spells. Put it there, I said. He watched me. I picked up the cup, held it in my hand, then set it down again. You hear anything from the port people? He asked. Not yet. That contract's still moving? It might be. He leaned against the edge of my desk, trying to look casual. You know, Dad, you do not have to handle every deal yourself anymore. There it was. Not concern. Not really. Interest. I looked at him closely. Jason had my eyes, my jawline, even my habit of tapping 2 fingers when he was waiting for somebody to answer. But there was something else in him I had not wanted to see. A kind of impatience. Like every person in the room was standing between him and what he believed belonged to him. "I've been thinking about retirement," I said. His fingers stopped tapping. "Really?" "Maybe not all at once. Maybe I hand more of the day-to-day to you." The smile came too fast. "That makes sense," he said. "You've earned a break." I nodded like I was tired, like I had no fight left in me. "Maybe we talk later this week." "Absolutely," Jason said. "You should rest today." He left the tea on my desk. As soon as he was gone, I carried it straight to a locked cabinet in the warehouse office. Wade had arranged for it to be checked through the same private contact. I did not need the results to know I had made the right choice, but I wanted every piece of proof I could get. Then I went home, locked the doors, and slept for 6 hours. That had not happened in months. The next morning, I woke up without my hands shaking. My stomach was still unsettled, and I was still weak, but my head felt clearer than it had in a long time. I stood in my bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror. My son had not made me old. He had been making me sick. Wade moved fast after that. He found that Bayline Equipment Group had no real office, no equipment, no employees, just a mailbox rental and a bank account. Coastal Industrial Leasing was the same thing. Mercer Dock Services had a business registration, but the listed address belonged to an empty storefront outside Pooler. All three companies had one thing in common: Tiffany. She had used different names, different mailing addresses, and different paperwork, but Wade found the connections. A utility bill here, a signature there, a payment card tied to one of the shell companies. Money from Williams Harbor had been flowing out in small enough pieces that nobody looking at 1 month would panic. But over time, it had added up. Hundreds of thousands, maybe more. I wanted to call Jason and ask him why. I wanted to drive to that condo and put him against a wall until he told me everything. But anger is expensive. It makes you move before you have what you need. So I waited. Wade followed Jason for 3 days. On the first day, Jason went to a medical supply place near the edge of town. He did not walk in through the main entrance. He parked behind the building, met a man at a side door, and left carrying a small sealed package. On the second day, he went to Tiffany's apartment. On the third day, he came to the warehouse after hours. Wade got pictures every time. Jason entering the office with a key. Jason carrying file boxes to his truck. Tiffany meeting him in a parking garage. The two of them talking close together beside her car, looking around before they opened the trunk. Each photo made it harder to breathe. Not because I doubted Mary anymore, because I did not. By the end of the week, Wade introduced me to Detective Harlan, a woman with tired eyes and a voice that made you listen. She reviewed the financial records, the lab report, the photographs, and Mary's written notes. "This is serious," she said, "but serious cases need solid proof." "What kind of proof?" "A direct threat, a statement, something that shows intent." I understood what she was saying. We needed Jason to talk. That night, I sat in my dark study with my phone in my hand. Then I called my son. When he answered, I made my breathing sound weak. "Jason," I said, "I need you to come to the house." His voice changed immediately. "Dad? What happened?" "I'm having trouble with my chest. I need to talk about the company. And my will." There was a short pause. Then he said, "I'll be right there." I ended the call and looked toward the front window. Police would be there soon. Wade too. They would set up what they needed in the study. After that, all I had to do was sit in my old chair, look weak, and wait for my son to come tell me who he really was. Jason arrived 12 minutes after I called. I knew because I watched the clock over the fireplace the whole time. I sat in my old leather chair with a blanket over my knees, one lamp on beside me, and a glass of water I had poured myself. Wade was in the kitchen with Detective Harlan and 2 officers. The cameras were already running. Nothing flashy. Just a small black lens on the bookshelf and another near the doorway. I kept telling myself to breathe normally. Then Jason came through the front door without knocking. "Dad?" His voice carried down the hall, concerned. Quick, exactly the voice a good son would use. "In here," I said. He walked into the study and looked at me for maybe 2 seconds before he started performing. "What happened? You said your chest was hurting." "I called my doctor," I said. "He says I need to stop pretending I'm 30 years younger than I am." Jason pulled a chair close to mine. "You scared me." I looked at him. "Did I?" He gave a little smile, but it did not reach his eyes. "You need to take it easy," he said. "The company can run without you for a few days." "There it is again," I said. "What?" "The company." He leaned back, like I had caught him talking too fast. "I'm just trying to help." "I know." I let my voice weaken. "That's why I need to talk to you about what happens next." He looked toward the desk. I had placed a yellow legal pad there, along with a folder marked Estate Planning. It was mostly blank paper, but it did the job. "I spoke with my attorney this afternoon," I said. Jason's face changed just a little. "About the will?" "Yes." He folded his hands. "You don't need to make any decisions tonight." "I do." "Why?" "Because I have been putting off important things." I paused, then looked him straight in the face. "I've decided Mary and the baby need to be protected." The room went quiet. Jason's mouth tightened. "Mary?" "Yes." "She left." "That is what you told me." "It's what happened." I shook my head slowly. "No, it is not." His eyes narrowed. "You found her." I did. For the first time that evening, I saw the mask slip. Not all the way. Just enough. "She came crying to you," he said. "Of course she did. She knows exactly how to play people." "Careful, son." "She took off and made me look like an idiot. Now she's trying to crawl back because she needs money." "She was working at a food truck 8 months pregnant." "That doesn't mean anything." "She was sleeping in her car." Jason stood up. "She told you that?" "She did." He started pacing across the study. It was something he did as a boy, whenever he had been caught breaking a rule. He would walk around the room and talk faster, hoping the noise would bury the truth. "She's unstable, Dad. You don't know what she's been doing. You don't know who she's been around. I know Tiffany was living in your house." He stopped moving. The silence after that felt heavy. "You've got this all wrong," he said. "Do I?" "Tiffany was helping me. Mary had checked out months before. She barely spoke to me. She acted like I was the enemy in my own home. You put her out. She left. You changed the locks. She was unpredictable. She was carrying your child." Jason looked away. Then he laughed once, quiet and bitter. "You don't even know if that baby is mine." I felt something in me go cold. For years, I had defended that man. I had made excuses for him when he missed work, when he spent money carelessly, when he blamed everyone else for a problem he created. I thought I was helping my son become stronger. All I had done was teach him that somebody would always clean up after him. "I'm setting up a trust," I said. He looked back at me. "For the baby?" "For Mary and the baby." "You can't be serious." "I am. That company is mine." "No," I said. "It is not." His face went red. "I've worked there my whole life. You have worked there 4 years. I was supposed to take over. You were supposed to earn it." He stepped closer to me. "You built all of this for me. I built it because I had nothing when I started. I built it so no one could take it from me. And now you're handing it to her? I'm protecting it from you." Write in the comments, was Raymond right to set the trap for his own son? Or should a father confront his child privately before bringing in the police? He stared at me. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. I had waited months for this moment without knowing it. Every bad spell, every cup of tea, every time I sat in my office, wondering why my mind felt like it was full of smoke. It all came down to my son, standing 3 feet away from me, angry that I had finally stopped believing him. "You think you can just change everything tomorrow?" he said. "Yes. You won't make it to tomorrow if you keep doing this." The words came out before he could stop them. I let the silence sit there. Jason realized what he had said. His eyes shifted toward the door. "What did you mean by that?" I asked. "I meant you're sick." "No, you meant something else. You're confused." I was confused. That's true. He looked toward the hallway again. Then I stood up. I was still weak. My body had not forgiven me yet. But I stood straighter than Jason expected. "You're done, son." The study door opened. Detective Harlan came in first, followed by the officers. Jason jumped back like the room had caught fire. "What is this?" he said. Harlan showed him her badge and told him to keep his hands where they could be seen. Jason looked at me, then at the cameras, then at the folder on the desk. "You set me up." "No," I said. "You set yourself up." He started shouting that I was sick, that Mary had filled my head with lies, that Tiffany knew nothing. But the recordings were there. The lab report was there. Wade had the photographs, the false invoices, the shell company records, and the proof of where the money went. For once, Jason could not talk his way out of a mess. They led him out through my front door. I watched from the study window until the vehicles were gone. Then my knees gave out. Wade caught me before I hit the floor. A few days later, Tiffany was found at her apartment with documents, account information, and the materials that tied everything together. The money trail was bigger than I had thought. She had planned the paperwork. Jason had given her access. Between the two of them, they had treated my company like an account they could drain before anyone noticed. The legal process took time. My recovery took longer. But Mary was safe. She moved into the guest room at my house until she could decide what she wanted next. Not because I wanted to control her life. I had learned my lesson about deciding things for other people. I wanted her to have a locked door, a full refrigerator, and nobody telling her she had nowhere to go. 3 weeks later, Mary went into labor. I sat in the hospital waiting room with a cup of bad coffee between my hands, more nervous than I had been signing the biggest contracts of my life. Then, the nurse came out smiling. "It's a boy," she said. "Mother and baby are doing well." When they brought me in, Mary looked exhausted, but peaceful. She held that little boy against her chest, wrapped in a blue blanket. "Raymond," she said softly, "meet Adam." I held out my arms. He was so small I was afraid to move wrong. His hand closed around my finger, and every thought I had been carrying for months went quiet. I changed my will after that. Jason would never touch Williams Harbor again. He would never touch Adam's future. The trust was protected, with Mary in control of the assets meant for her son. I gave her a place at the company too, not because she owed me work, but because she understood the business and had earned my respect long before I knew it. One evening, months later, I sat on my porch with Adam asleep against my chest. Mary was inside making dinner. The harbor breeze moved through the oak trees, and for the first time in a long time, my house felt like a home again. I looked down at my grandson and understood the hardest truth of my life. Blood does not make somebody loyal. Character does. Jason was my son, and he tried to take everything from me. Mary had every reason to disappear and never look back. Instead, she told the truth, and she saved my life.